and I'm going to do share screen. Okay, here we go. So welcome. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Chan, and I'm a part-time professor at the Academy of Intuition Medicine. I'm also a physician, board certified in integrative medicine, and my medical practice is at two different locations, Marin Natural Medicine Clinic in Larkspur, as well as Advanced Hyperbaric Recovery of Marin. And this is just a disclaimer. This is not intended as a substitute for the diagnosis, treatment, and advice of a qualified.
Jacqueline's muted.
Okay, I want to thank my teachers. Francesca McCartney, who is the founder of the Academy of Intuition Medicine and Energy Medicine University. Montauk Chia, who's a Taoist master teacher, Qigong Master Teacher of the Year by International Congress in Chinese Medicine. Jonathan Landsman, who is author and host of Natural Health 365. Heather Zwicky, PhD in immunology and microbiology with a focus on infectious disease and vaccines, postdoctorate at Yale University, and founder of the Health Got Research Institute, as well as a leader in NIH research training, the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, and the Institute of Orthomolecular Medicine. So most of the information that I'm giving you today comes from these sources. And the topic is building a resilient immune system in the midst of a pandemic. This is the first of a series of 3 on the body. If you are interested in more information, I would recommend 2 great movies. Personal Guidance System, in which our founder, Francesca McCartney, is featured, and it's about intuition, and the Vitamin Movie, which is just an amazing movie about the research behind vitamins. So, we're in this time right now where I'm sure we're asking ourselves, what plans? We must be willing to get rid of our plans and live the life that is waiting for us. I think the entire planet is stunned, has been stunned since last year, and something that we really thought, I remember originally when this came out, I thought, well, surely by summer this will all be over. And here we are 6 months later, and the pandemic is not over. And this is just an incredibly potent time. It's one of the few times where the entire planet has joined in a similar suffering and a similar solution. And that's part of the intrigue for me about coronavirus, the pandemic, and what is happening in our times, the shutdown, lockdown, however you want to say it. But Bruce Lipton, and I'll go a little bit more into this next week when I talk about the mind, the second part of the 3 series workshop. Bruce Lipton talks about gang receptors. And with gang receptors, they are cell receptors that help indicate if we are in danger or if we're in safety. And it's impossible biologically for our body to grow and heal if it feels like it's in danger. We need safety in order to grow and heal. So we're in this kind of dichotomy because when we wear masks, in a way that tells the biological system that there's danger. And when we socially distance, that's kind of telling you that there's danger. And at the same time, we do that to make each other feel safe. But our basic reptilian neurological response is that you're in danger. And then we read the news, we're trying to feel safe, but the more we're told about the numbers increasing and the deaths increasing and more lockdowns, we're in this constant kind of barrage of information that's making us feel like we're under a lot of danger. And this is what makes this intriguing and a creative dance. So I want to offer you some ways to think about this that will be healing. And then the third workshop is on spiritual immunity, which is about energetic boundaries and kind of the more bigger soul lessons of how do we slow down and stop as a planet in order to regroup, in order to come to our origin, in order to recenter, because there's something that is wanting to happen through this crisis. Crisis happens because we need a big change. And we want to make a change from a place of centeredness and clarity. That's crucial. So, in the meditation, in the second half of this workshop at 12 noon, the last half will be 100% meditation. Um, I'm gonna talk. I'm doing the meditation to help us feel grounded and centered as we go through this, so that each day, each week, when we have to make all kinds of decisions because we're needing to be adaptive and change, that we can make it from a place of groundedness and clarity. My teaching style, some of you probably been in my classes before, some of you, this may be completely new, but generally, I like to give a lot of information. And the first half, up until 11:55, will be a lot of information. And then the second half will be purely experiential. And I'm going to be asking you to drop out of your mind and your analytical. And that way, also, if you're looking at the recording, you can go straight to 12 o'clock if you want to just do the meditation. Or if you only want to learn about the immune system and didactics, then you can stop at 12, because at 12, it will be the meditation. So, when we learn, we want to feel safe. And uh, essentially, this class is there will be an opportunity to share, and it will be recorded. So I just want you to know that we keep everything confidential, but this is going to be a recording, and the recording will be available to other people down the road. So essentially, however, um, feeling safe is very important for connection, for creativity, and for healing. So that's number one, is creating a sacred space together. And I want you to, we're going to do like, I'm going to teach this a little differently than purely didactic, because I want to really weave in the principles that we learn at the Academy of Intuition Medicine. This is going to be repeat for those of you who are graduates or students, and it'll be new to some people who haven't been here before. So let's just first kind of tune in. So I want you to just close your eyes, and you're going to put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And let's just close eyes and just take a moment to arrive. We're just going to arrive right here. And just think of two words. One is how you're feeling, and the other is a bodily sensation. So my bodily sensation is tingling in my feet, and my feeling is focus, like my emotion is focus. So just kind of note to self how you're feeling. Okay, good. Thank you. I would like to encourage you and invite you to listen to the didactic portion of this seminar from a place of present time, based on the science of now. Present time really allows us to receive information more richly. And so, less from your analytical mind, but more from your meditation sanctuary. So, what do I really mean by that? Well, the meditation sanctuary is this area in the middle of our brain. It's also called our sixth chakra, or our seat of intuition. And it's right above our ears. So, it's right about here, if you were to look sideways. It's not here, it's deeper here. So if you bring your attention as you're listening to the didactic behind your eyes and in the middle of your brain, it will help the information come in a different way. And so I'd love for you to experiment with this process. And The other thing is while you're listening to feel your feet on the ground, right? Now, some of you may be walking around the kitchen, multitasking, folding the laundry, writing stuff. I mean, I'm a big multitasker. I rarely sit down. But if even if you are standing and doing something, feel your feet on the ground, feel the soles of your feet on the ground. Bring your energy back behind your eyes. Um, Through our feet chakras, we connect to the earth, and earth energy composts our biophotonic energy. I'll go into this more in the second half, but this is what it looks like. And our meditation sanctuary, which is in our sixth chakra, this is an image taken from Francesca McCartney's book, Energy Medicine, and it goes all the way down into the earth, along with our feet chakras. So this is from her book, Body of Health. Um, your life force energy. Life force and earth energy naturally circulates through our body, organs, and tissues and cells, clearing out old negative energy and replenishing you with new, vibrant energy. So, your personal meditation practice can locate, amplify, and direct this energy and create a profound healing effect on your body, mind, and spirit. So if you're going to multitask, I want you to multitask by listening to this, being aware of your feet and the connection to the earth, and your meditation sanctuary behind your eyes as you're listening to this information. Then we're bringing it all online and we're increasing your ability to be present. What's possible from this place? We're waking up to see ourselves as co creators of our experience, where 80% of our experiences come from inside our brain and 20% come from external sources. This is really putting you back in the seat of your own power. And that's something that we really want to encourage because living in the middle of a pandemic automatically is geared towards making you feel like you're a victim. And there's this really dangerous virus out there that we have to run from. My intention in this seminar is to empower you. I want to empower you with science. I want to empower you with ancient technology from Taoist practices to help the myeloid cells produce immune system cells in your body in the meditation. And I want to empower you with these practices from the Academy of Intuition Medicine. The bigger questions, everything is, I think of life, you know, we're, I like the Russian doll method. So, we're about to zero in on a specific topic, the immune system in the middle of a pandemic. But the bigger issues are always there, and they are actually the more important issues, which is things like, are you in sync with your life and your soul? Where have you abandoned your dreams? And are you in synchronicity with the cosmos? These are the larger things that are happening right now. That's why this is happening to the planet. So I'd like us to now enter into a little meditation. And from that meditation, we'll then go into the didactic portion. So let's just close eyes. And I want you to gather yourself back around everything that I've just been talking about. And just begin to feel your feet on the earth and acknowledge the earth below you. Acknowledge the forefathers. Acknowledge the continental plate that you're on, the multiple layers, and the history of planet Earth. For over billions of years, planet Earth has been providing life. She survived 6 mass extinctions on this planet. Life has continued after the ice age. Life has continued and it continues. So just acknowledging the resilience of planet Earth, acknowledging the variety and abundance of what she has produced in plant life, in fruits, vegetables, in animal species, and the beauty that planet Earth provides beaches and coastlines, deep, beautiful forests, lakes and mountains, fields and flowers, sky and clouds. And if there was a vibration or tone that you could resonate with, that Earth represented for you, imagine that you could bring that tone into your feet, into your legs and hips, and drop an anchor from your pelvis deep into the earth, committing to the earth and all of her abundance and all of her endless generosity and her resilience. And going into your meditation sanctuary, about 3 inches behind your eyes, take a candle, a single candle, into that space and let the warmth of that candlelight radiate out into your meditation sanctuary and drop an anchor down from the meditation sanctuary deep into the earth, letting your mind become quiet. Tuning into your breath, and bringing your focus back up into your meditation sanctuary where that candle is. Imagine that your spirit self could step forward into that candlelight, you as your spirit self, and just say hello to yourself as a spirit, connecting heart to heart with her or with him. And acknowledge all the other spirits who are listening and participating right now in this seminar. Even though you cannot see them, sense their presence and sense for just a moment their hearts. And imagining that we're in together a beautiful forest, and that forest extends all the way to the northern horizon and all the way to the eastern horizon, all the way to the southern horizon, and all the way to the western. And that there is a clearing in the forest. We've come in through our different directions of the woods, and we stand together. And imagine that we could actually hold each other's hands and just connect for a few breaths in this quiet space. Now I want you to just put your right hand on your heart and your left hand on your belly and tune into yourself. And feel into those two words again. See if there's been any change. One is your bodily sensation, the other is your feeling. And so for me, I feel warmth through my fingertips and hands, and I feel really my emotion is touched and moved. Great. And then give yourself a nice big hug and thank you. And see if you can hold this feeling as you learn the didactic portion. Okay. So let's talk about the virus. Well, it's considered a novel virus. I'm talking about COVID 19, of course, which is the disease caused by SARS CoV 2 virus. But it's actually one of a family of viruses that have been studied since the 1950s. Now, the fatality rate of SARS virus, which was in China several years ago, was 9%. This virus has a kind of the highest vitality rate that has been documented has been around 3%. It was 10% in Wuhan originally, initially. The flu is 0.1%. I want you to kind of memorize that number. 0.1% is the fatality rate of the flu. And MERS, which was in 2020, had a mortality rate of 34%. That is huge compared to what we're facing right now. So, what would the virus want to say to you? Like, do we ever think, the virus had a voice and if it could talk, what would it say? Um, it'd say, I'm stressed. So, when the virus first came out, as we all were looking and listening and trying to gather a lot of information, um, an epidemiologist, she has a TED talk, who had studied pandemics, really appreciated what she had to say, which was that uh, the human being activity had entered into the wilderness too far. And that is why the bat generated the coronavirus mutation, because it was under genomic stress and adaptive stress. And some of the adaptive stresses are things like air pollution and global climate change and human activity. And when a virus becomes stressed, it forms more exosomes. What exosomes are they are capsules in which the virus then evacuates from the cell and says, I'm getting out of here. Well, what does that mean when a virus starts evacuating and spreading? It means it becomes more viral. Its virology increases because it's replicating more and getting out of here and leaving. So that was the virus's response to stress. Um, Charles Eisenstein and Dr. Zach Bush both talk about the concept of interbeing and how we are an interspecies, and that we need to solve some problems together as a planet. The number one is global climate change, which was our number one concern before coronavirus hit. Well, of course, tragedy brings us together. And it could be that this virus is the first thing is really bringing us together as joint human behavior and human changes. Now, I want to put the numbers into perspective. This is not the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague had a fatality rate of 50%. It killed half of Europe. I mean, we're talking about a fatality rate of 2 to 3%. Um, Viruses spread. So, yes, we're tracking numbers and we're saying the numbers are increasing, the numbers are increasing. So is the numbers of deaths. Um, but that's what viruses do. Viruses spread. And we even have a human virome inside our body. We have our DNA is made partially from viral DNA. So we know by now that COVID 19 is much worse than the flu, about 10 times worse, but it's not as bad as the plague. So, if we looked at just last 2018 to 2019, there were 35 million cases of the flu. 16 million people were ill enough to go to the doctor. There are about 34,000 deaths. We have about 10 times as many deaths right now in the world, 349,000 deaths from the coronavirus, but less cases than we've had of the flu, and they are increasing. Did we flatten the curve? Well, we predicted that there would be 30 to 40 million deaths. Right now in the United States, we have 349,000 deaths as of December 30th. The numbers are already up at the time that I'm giving this talk. And so I would say, yes, we have flattened the curve. Have we stopped it? No, but we have flattened the curve. Um, so the data as of today, this morning, is that there are, United States is leading the globe. We have over 2 million cases. And California is leading the rates in the United States. Most of those are in Los Angeles. There are 889,000 cases, just over that, and 11,000 deaths. When you calculate the death rate, it's 1.3%. So it's 10 times more than the flu, which is 0.1%. In San Francisco, our death rate is 0.8%. You can see we have far fewer deaths, 218. And in Marin County, we have 143 deaths, 1.3%. So it's following what we predicted. However, when the virus first came out in Wuhan, we really thought that the fatality rate was 10%. Now it's more like 1%. So we have to realize it's 10 times less deadly than when we first saw it when it came out. We have less cases than we did of the flu, although they are growing, and we do have more deaths, but this isn't the bubonic plague. Okay, now is the virus going to be around forever? This is tricky because we have some mutated forms. Interestingly, sounds like the mutated forms, the one in United Kingdom, came from a hospitalized patient, so the virus was under more stress. Drugs, medicines. But in the past, the other two coronaviruses we had, one was gone in a year, MERS, which had the fatality rate of 34%, and SARS was gone in 2 years. So these other ones haven't lasted forever. Now, are you at risk? You're at a much higher risk if you're obese, if you have diabetes, if you're age 70 or above, 50 or above, or if you have inflammation in your body. The biggest danger with this virus is the speed. So, as you know, you can be asymptomatic for up to 5 days or even 14 days, and you can be spreading the virus without knowing it. You can get the virus and you can be dead in 10 days. You can go from asymptomatic to extremely ill in 24 hours. So that's the tricky thing about this virus is it just happens so fast. So if you're really concerned and you have one of those um, uh, comorbidities, you may want to get your vitamin D levels checked. If it's a level in your blood of 17 or lower, you have an increased risk of death. You want to check your hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker of diabetes, and glycosylated proteins. You want to check for inflammation, your C-reactive protein, and fibrinogen, which is how much is your blood thick. Also, your liver function tests, because the virus will go up if you have a stressed liver. Your chances of death will go up. Ferritin, both of these have an 80% predictive measure of could you develop ARDS or acute respiratory distress if you have an elevated ferritin or elevated liver function test. These are tests that any regular doctor can order. than any LabCorp or Quest lab can do. These are not fancy tests, they're basic tests. And then a CBC, if your lymphocytes are going down or your monocytes are going up. I'm not going to go much more into kind of this aspect, but for some of you who really want to know, I think this is very valuable information. What about, an emergency stash at home? So, pulse ox. Generally, the virus tends to attack our red blood cells, and it um, inhibits our red blood cells' ability to attach to oxygen. And so we may feel tired before we ever get a cough or get any lung problems because our oxygen levels are going low before we actually develop the cough. So you can get a pulse ox for about $40 from CVS or Walmart, Walgreens. And if that pulse ox goes below 94%, you need to be extremely cautious. You're at high risk now. You want to maybe have a rapid test available at home because getting tested outside means you have to be able to get on a computer, you have to have a video consult. It's hard. There may be a wait time. So you want to have a rapid test that's available at home and pre-made meals in the freezer because this happens so fast that in a day if you're too sick, you're going to be too sick to cook. Okay? Keep some aspirin around. There have been increased rates of heart attack, stroke. There is a blood clotting issue with this, and aspirin a day will greatly reduce those chances. And your supplements, which I'm going to go into detail now. Your vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, vitamin A, and selenium, you should all have at home. This is your emergency stash. Avoid Tylenol because fever is your friend. With a virus, the hotter your temperature, the better. And if you have access to a sauna is fantastic for boosting the immune system and helping kill virus. In the hospital, they're using things like remdesivir and dexamethasone, which have been promising. These are things that we didn't have when the virus first broke out. But, let's not forget our immune system. And that's what I'm really going to go into now. Have faith in your immune system. Our immune system is powerful. So I want to just stop and pause here, and I'd like to just tell you a personal story. I'm sure we can all remember when the pandemic first started. It's kind of, like when the Twin Towers were bombed. We sort of remember where we were and what we were doing when it first started. I remember that I had just come back from a medical conference in Colorado in osteopathic manipulation, and I had been on vacation the week before in Mexico, and the pandemic hit, and I was in the airport, and it was kind of just surreal for me. Um, but within the first month of that, the pandemic hit us in different ways. For some of us, economically, with our businesses, if you're in the travel industry or restaurant business or hair salon business. For some of us, all of a sudden, you're homeschooling your kids. Um, for me, I injured my knee. So I have a horse. I didn't fall off of her, but I fell off a mounting block. And I completely severed my anterior cruciate ligament. I didn't know I had done that because I had no pain. I just knew that I could barely walk. And I didn't take the time to go to a physical therapist or go to an orthopedic surgeon because I didn't have any pain. And I was so focused on the pandemic, to be honest. I just was like, that was kind of overwhelming to me. So I just went into my knee, and the knee had a voice for me. My knee injury told me you need to have the courage and clarity to move your life forward and not the fear to shrink you back. So that fear of the pandemic hit us in different ways. And for me, it was my knee injury. And so I realized that this is a time where I'm dancing between courage and fear. And that my message was to slow down, travel less. I needed to completely stop, which is what I actually did. I went on 2 silent retreats on the weekends. And where have I stepped out of integrity in my life and how to be in full integrity. So these are the bigger questions that we need to be asking. Um, I want you to really pause and delve into these questions more so than what kind of, mask or hand sanitizer, does it need to be 70% alcohol or not? Or just think about how much our attention has been brought into some of these details. And attention, well, what media does is it grabs attention away from other parts. But these to me are the bigger questions that the pandemic is making us pose. So let's go into the immune system specifically. It is our first line of defense, is the innate part of the immune system, and then our adaptive is our long-term immunity. And our innate consists of the natural killer cells, which are here to slow down the entry of virus, our B cells, which are our antibodies, and that is what the antibody test is checking for if you have developed an immunity to the coronavirus, and then the T cells, Th helper 1, 2, and 17. Um, One of the things that we've heard is that we're seeing signs from the lab tests that you're not able to develop long term immunity from the coronavirus. And that's only based on the B cells because that's the only thing that we're testing. But long term immunity is really from T cells and mucosal immunity, which would be really, it's not being measured by labs. So B cells normally float around for about 3 months and then they disappear. So just because you have an antibody test that doesn't show that you've developed an immune system doesn't mean that you can't be immune to coronavirus. So I just want to say that we have to be careful as how these things are talked about. But we don't have a test that's measuring long term immunity. Our best way of determining that is going to be tracking numbers and tracking to see what happens in the data. But please have faith that you may well be able to develop a long term immunity to the coronavirus. We've been making global decisions. Wearing masks, social distancing, hand washing are the top three that we've been making to help us with this pandemic. Now, how can we look at these in a way that we don't tell our bodies we're under danger? So let's see if there's a way we can be creative about these three things that we're doing. And I'm going to focus mostly on hand washing right here. And hand washing is something that can actually tie us in to our ancestry and even some of our high religious or religious forms of practice that we did um, as rituals. So, looking at the biblical origin of hand washing, just wanted to read this as the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "You shall also make a basin of bronze, and its pedestal also of bronze to wash with, and you shall put it between the tent of meeting and the altar, and you shall put it in water. For Aaron and his sons shall wash there their hands and their feet. When they go into the tent of meeting, they shall wash with water, that they die not. Or when they come near to the altar to minister, to burn offering made of fire to the Lord, so they shall wash their hands and their feet, that they die not. And it shall be a statute forever to them, to him and to his seeds throughout their generations." I just find it very interesting that they are talking about washing hands to protect you from death. So, what if we used the necessity of hand washing as a healing ritual? And if we use the things that we need to do at the door, taking our shoes off, leaving our mail, leaving our groceries, maybe washing the doorknob with a bleach wipe, um, or touching the door, but immediately going into the sink when you go in your home and washing your hands. As you wash your hands, experiment with a healing affirmation, such as I clear my heart of all worry and upset, or I wash away my tensions, or I am protecting myself. If you're Jewish, this may link you back to an ancient tradition of washing hands. If you're Christian, also. And I even know, like with the Persians, they do this beautiful hand washing ritual with rose water when they enter somebody other's home. So allow this maybe even to connect you with your ancestors in their tradition. So I want to segue now into supplements. What if I told you that we can slow viral entry, slow viral replication, slow the chances of severity, and increase the intelligence of the body to lessen the cytokine storm, which can lead to the respiratory distress, which is really when people start dying? Wouldn't you be interested in what that is? And you don't need a doctor's prescription for it, and you don't need a fancy Chinese medicine doctor, although their Chinese medicine can be very helpful. You can find this at any Walgreens or Walmart or pharmacy or health food store very easily in any town in the United States or in the world. Um, and so there's one supplement actually in particular that does all four of these things, and you can get it at any health food store. It's relatively inexpensive and it's relatively safe. And that is our sunshine vitamin, calcitriol. So, vitamin D is actually a hormone. It's an essential nutrient that cannot be synthesized in your body. And 61% of the elderly population in the United States have a vitamin D deficiency. How do you get it naturally? Well, when your skin is exposed to sunlight, we manufacture the vitamin D. Um, Now, you don't have to sit in the sun for hours on end. It's recommended just about 15 minutes on average at noon. And that's, however, there's a couple caveats. One is in the wintertime between November and March, the sun isn't high enough on the horizon unless you live near the equator, like essentially maybe Texas or Florida or below that, you may be able to. But if you're in Lake Tahoe skiing all day long, you're not getting enough sun, even if you're outside in the sunshine all day. And also, if you're dark skinned, studies have found that people with dark skin need up to six-fold more sunshine exposure to get that vitamin D. I'm actually part Chinese, that's where my last name comes from, Chan, and part Spanish. And I have measured my vitamin D levels even after 5 hours of sunbathing, on like, almost a monthly, daily for a month, and they were actually low. So um, you may need to supplement, or I actually would say you need to supplement. So, primary D is primarily obtained from your body's response to those UV rays, and it's also in some foods, but not really in high enough levels. We usually think of it as good for your skeletons and your bones, and it helps calcium absorption. That's what I learned in med school. But even in preparing for this talk, I am amazed at the research of what vitamin D does for us. And I wish that general media was talking about this. Um, so, in a widely respected endocrine society report in 2011, it was concluded that based on all evidence, at a minimum, we recommend vitamin D levels of 30 nanograms per milliliter. This is in your blood system. And up to even 40 and 60 for children and adults. So, vitamin D actually lowers cancer incidence based on studies involving over 100,000 participants. I mean, this isn't just one or two studies. This is a meta-analysis of 16 studies. That is profound. And research concluded that for every 20 millimole nanomole increase in your levels of vitamin D in your blood, the risk of cancer dropped by 7%. I mean, that is amazing. So, If there was a drug that did that, we'd be all over it. Vitamin D also offers cardiovascular benefits based on an analysis of 32 studies. This is not a small amount of data. These are large amounts of data. So, vitamin D is inversely associated with cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, and strokes, and ischemic stroke. These are things that coronavirus can cause. So, we're seeing more than just one reason to take vitamin D, many, many more than just absorbing calcium. And have there been any looks at vitamin D and coronavirus specifically? Absolutely, there have been. In a study on Indonesia on 700 people, those who had vitamin D deficiency were 19 times more likely to die of the coronavirus, whereas those who had optimal levels decreased their chances by fourfold. Um, there was a study looking at the population of 20 European countries, and the studies, documented cases of coronavirus as well as their subsequent mortality. And they found that there was a correlation between the mortality rates of those in those countries and vitamin D levels in their of deficiency. And in a Spanish study looking at hospitalized patients, they took 76 patients and they gave them hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, and 50 of them were also given vitamin D, 26 of them were not. Of those 50 people who were also given vitamin D, only one required ICU admission, whereas 26 of the people who did not get the vitamin D, even though they were getting hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, 50% of those needed hospitalization in the ICU, and two of them died, or 8%. So these are really amazing statistics. And I think the reason we're not seeing more of it is because it's not a pharmaceutical. So you need to you need to see that vitamin D is profound, and I don't want it to be poo-pooed. Amazing data. So what's the dose? 2,000 milligrams 4 times a day if you for preventative, essentially, um, and twice a day if you weigh over 140 pounds. Vitamin D is fat soluble, so you do want to take it with fat. If you have known exposure, you want to go a lot higher. Okay. If you have known exposure, I actually would encourage you to go up to 100,000 milligrams of vitamin D a day, but you cannot do that for more than 5 days because it can become toxic. So please be careful and cautious with that. However, if you're at home, you lost your sense of taste or smell, you have a fever, you're developing a cough, or you're getting neurological symptoms, a headache, diarrhea, then you want to load up on your vitamin D for those 5 days. 100,000 units. You want a blood level of 40 or above, and ideal for cancer prevention is 70 to 80. You can ask your doctor to measure your vitamin D levels. You want to ask for 25 hydroxy vitamin D. There's a lot of different versions of vitamin D in a blood lab. Most doctors know this by now, but some of them don't. 25 hydroxy vitamin D is the blood. Let's talk about vitamin C now. So, Nobel Prize winning researcher Linus Pauling, board certified cardiologist Thomas Levy, both have maintained that high doses of vitamin C or ascorbic acid can prevent and combat viral loaded illness. They're even using high dose vitamin C IVs in treating coronavirus because it boosts the immune system. Now, I work at a facility that does high dose vitamin C IVs, and I know of other IV lounges. Unfortunately, most facilities are not accepting any patients with coronavirus. So it really, where this needs to be happening is in the hospitals. However, if you have a concern, Let's say you're about to travel, you may want to get a high dose vitamin C IV before you get in an airplane. Or if you're going to be around somebody with coronavirus, or if you're just feeling depleted and you're working as a healthcare professional or where you're around a lot of people, then this would be an excellent adjunct. Vitamin C is anti inflammatory, antioxidant. It scavenges free radicals and it helps with stress and tissue damage. It supports the epithelial barrier functioning against pathogens. So it's going to support your GI tract as well as your lung tissue. And it enhances the phagocytes, which are essentially the part of your immune system that is eating up the virus and the bacteria. So it's helping at multiple different levels. Um, and in Shanghai, they actually in 2020, February, um, they had official recommendations of high dose vitamin C IV. That was Dr. Mao, the chief of the emergency department in Shanghai's Rujin Hospital, and he co authored the Shanghai guidelines for the treatment of COVID 19. Now, what if you can't get a high dose vitamin C IV? Well, there's a lot you can do that's not intravenous, absolutely. But I just want you to see that in China, they are looking at this. Intravenously, they're looking at 24,000 milligrams or 24 grams of vitamin C IV. What would that look like if you were taking it by mouth? It would look like at about 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C every 4 minutes if you had pneumonia. I mean, if you were in full blown, pulmonary distress, that's how much vitamin C you would be taking. Obviously, you don't want to wait until that point in time. You want to take vitamin C now to help with prevention and go up at much higher doses if you start having the symptoms within 24 hours. So you want to be taking 2 to 4,000 milligrams daily for prevention. But if you know that you got exposed or if you start having symptoms, 10,000 milligrams a day that's the mega dose. Unlike vitamin D, you can't really get toxic in vitamin C, so you don't have to worry about toxicity, but you can get a kidney stone if you don't drink enough water at these very high levels of 10,000 milligrams, or certainly with an IV. So you want to drink plenty of water. What's plenty of water? I'd say like at least 2 glasses every time you have 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C. The next thing with vitamin C is you want to space it out because you'll pee off whatever you have in excess. So don't take it all at one time. You want to have about 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams every hour or 2 hours. So if you're sick, you don't take it all at once. You take it every 1 to 2 hours. You take that extra 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C. And then, of course, a lot more if you're really sick. Let's talk about zinc. So, zinc actually lowers viral replication by 27%, and you need about 20 to 30 milligrams a day. And zinc is depleted in our soil and in our vegetables. So, many people don't have enough zinc. It's going to block the RNA synthesis of the coronavirus and effectively stop the virus from replicating. Um, and zinc shortages are most common in older people. Very interesting correlation by Dr. Emily Ho, College of Public Health and Human Services at Oregon State. She said that 40% of Americans over the age of 65 are low in in zinc. And that actually correlates with the higher numbers of poor outcomes from COVID 19 in that population of elderly. So we know that giving zinc can really help at 30 milligrams. It also is going to help those T cells. And when they compared it to placebo, there was a dramatic difference. Now, can you get enough zinc from food? You can get it from grass fed beef, free range poultry, chickpeas, cage-free eggs, cashews, pumpkin seeds, and oysters. Okay. But I would actually supplement because you'd need to eat quite a lot of those to get enough. I want to talk about quercetin. So, quercetin is believed to interfere with viral replication, especially in the early stages like viral attachment and viral cell fusion. It inhibits both influenza A and B, and it's been credited by some physicians as outperforming Tamiflu for the flu. This came out of Jonathan Landsman's um, uh, ebook on coronavirus. Quercetin is found in fruits and vegetables, such as unpeeled apples, dark cherries, chocolate, dark leafy green vegetables, green tea, and onions. Um, and it's typically recommended in supplement form as 500 milligrams twice a day. And then there's traditional Chinese herbs, which can lower the length of illness by 50%, and also mushrooms, which can increase the bone marrow's capacity to make white blood cells. Um, these are, you have to be more choosy with the quality of your Chinese herbs and the quality of your mushrooms. And so you can't necessarily run into any Walgreens or Walmart or Costco and get the right brand. So I would only get Chinese herbs from a person who is educated in Chinese medicine. In terms of a available form of mushrooms that I really trust, a brand that I really trust is Econugenics, and I would also include in that Host Defense, Paul Stamets's brand. So this is a lot of information, and some of us say, well, my God, that's a lot of money on supplements, but health is your new wealth. I mean, we're talking about possibly saving your life or saving you from getting coronavirus and the long hauler symptoms. Let's talk about your diet because there is a gut lung connection. In general, you want to eat breakfast like a king and avoid sugar. So here I have eggs and avocado, which super boost your mitochondria. If all you have left is a virome, then you've killed the microbiome. So we have a microbiome in our gut that helps protect the lining of the gut. And wouldn't you know, this was an article that just thrilled me. And if you're a nutritionist or you're really a nerd about food, you may want to take a photograph of my footnote here. Dr. Kara Fitzgerald, brilliant naturopath, wrote this incredible article on the 8 potential anti-COVID compounds in food, revealing their molecular docking sites. So these are the foods she talks about: citrus, tea, Chinese skullcap, which is an herb, andrographis, which is an herb, quercetin, which is in onions, apples, and fennel, luteolin, which is in celery, thyme, green peppers, and rosemary. And this is a lot of research. So you don't need to know this, but I want you to see that they actually identified the molecular docking sites of each of these foods. And the list goes on and on. Looking at the binding to hesperidin, which blocks spike protein binding, ACE2 binding, SARS-CoV-2 protease binding. I mean, this is amazing information. So the results showed that hesperidin, cannabinoids, pectolinolin, epigallocatechin galactin, which is in green tea, and rolfionolin had better effects than chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine as spike glycoprotein inhibitors. I mean, that's profound. So these plant compounds have the potential to be developed as specific therapeutic agents. How am I incorporating this into my life? Well, I usually drink coffee for breakfast, but this morning I had matcha green tea instead. I'm trying to drink more teas, black teas, green teas. For breakfast, I'll cook onions in my eggs or mushrooms and onions. I will make sure I'm eating a green apple every day with the skin on. These are ways you can start incorporating. Now, hormonal health is very important because we are adapting. Some of us are under incredible stress having to do with our homes, our jobs, our relationships. Uh, Everything is under stress, the economy. So we need to take care of adrenals. These are some good adrenal adaptogenic herbs: ashwagandha, cordyceps, rhodiola, schizandra, and ginseng. In the interest of time, I can't go into all of these in detail, but they are available in my book, Regenerate Your Brain, which you can get on Amazon. I'm going to give some other references at the end on a slide of this talk. Um, Sleep is extremely important for your immune system as well as your stress levels. Melatonin is very safe at zero point 0.5 to 3 milligrams a night, and you can even take up to 10 milligrams. And I recently read a study showing that melatonin 30 milligrams a day is recommended if you actually have COVID 19. And, we all know that children don't get coronavirus 19 effects nearly as severely as adults or the elderly. And one of the theories is that children make more melatonin, and that's why. So, sleep is an extremely important aspect to our immune system. Here's some tips on sleep. Sleep in as dark a room as possible, even if it means getting night blinds. I have 2 layers of curtains in my bedroom, or even I met a friend in New York City who was cutting out cardboard and putting it over her windows, so it was completely black for her children. Other things that affect sleep: not getting outside. We need to get outside. If it's at least 20 minutes a day, that can help. Alcohol. Some of us I know are, turning to alcohol to handle the stress, but that blocks your deep REM sleep. Um, Excess caffeine will suppress melatonin production. Not enough exercise, adding just 15 to 20 minutes a day of exercise will help you with your sleep. And unresolved emotions. Um, and that's what the meditation at noon will really help with. So I recommend, skip your iced tea in the evening or at dinner time or your after dinner coffee if you're having trouble with sleeping. Cut out alcohol in the late evening. If you have to have alcohol, have it at 4 p.m. And only have it 1 or 2 nights a week. And then there's electroceutical hygiene. So keeping our electronic devices at least 10 feet away from us when we're sleeping. And you may even want to turn off the Wi-Fi router at night. Um, Light is medicine. As you know, been talking about the sunshine vitamin a lot today. But what about electrical light? Well, red is good and blue is bad. So there are even some light therapies coming out, red light therapy. I'm not going to go into this in this talk, but we know that far infrared light that comes in the sauna actually helps boost the mitochondria. And blue light, which is on our computers, is bad. Now, what are we having more of with the coronavirus? We're having less movement because we're staying at home, and we're having more blue light because we're doing everything on computers. So, you want to use some screen protection on your computer. I like Flux, F period LUX, right down here, or blue blocking glasses. Calm Optics. They're just these clear glasses that you put on that help block the blue light from the computers. I'm concerned that as our children get older, they may actually have some visual problems from being exposed to blue light as long as they are. And blue light also reduces melatonin production. Now, sometimes electroceuticals can actually help us. And so, what do I mean by that? Well, for some people, binaural beats, music can be very helpful for stress. Um, and I want to highlight the Mind Rise app. It's an iPhone app that one of our graduates from the Academy, Tiffany Bucco, produced, and has a number of wonderful meditations. I'm on there, but she said that it ranks very high for its effects in sleep, including even bedtime stories and breathing meditations. Okay, and before we break, I need to talk about the long haulers. The long haulers are post COVID syndrome, and this is one reason we don't want to get coronavirus and become a long hauler. This is one reason we really want to be tending to our immune system big time. So, there are neurological sequelae with coronavirus that happens in about 10% of people. Um, some have it more severely, such as breathing problems, joint pain, chest pain, memory issues, and sleep issues, and ongoing loss of the sense of taste and smell. Data suggests that up to 70% of people who have COVID have long term symptoms. Um, and they don't necessarily report them because they're not debilitating. But we all know you don't like to operate at 70% of your capacity. Um, Now, does age matter? Even young people are getting long hauler symptoms. Data from the UK indicate that 26% of people in their 20s have it, and 30% of those in their 30s, suggesting that age isn't necessarily a factor. There are psychological sequelae to long haulers, such as depression and anxiety, that's simply from the pro inflammatory cytokines from coronavirus. And we do know that up to 40% of people in Hong Kong who survived SARS, which was the other coronavirus in 2012, experienced chronic fatigue for up to 4 years following their infection. This is something that we really don't want to have happen. Now, what is TGF beta protein? Well, a percentage of people who had severe COVID infection made antibodies to their own immune system. This is disastrous. But if you have enough TGF beta production in your gut, then those autoimmune reactions will be self limited and they'll show up, but within a month they'll be gone. So, on the other hand, people who don't have enough TGF beta protein are going to be unable to resolve their specific immune response, leading to long term autoimmune disease. So, of course, I'm sure you're dying to know what raises TGF beta protein. Well, it's a healthy microbiome, meaning the gut bacteria. It's vitamin D, which I've already talked a lot about. It's a vitamin A, and I would recommend about 2,000 milligrams a day of vitamin A. These are all TGF beta promoters. So, another thing I'm doing, like last night, I had goat kefir, and this morning I had chia seed pudding because fiber helps feed your gut microbiome. So, we want to help nourish the gut bacteria with lots of fiber. That would be the skin on your vegetables and fruits, rice bran, oat bran, actually taking fiber, and things like chia seed and ground flaxseed. And there's been some concerns with male sterility as well as a consequence of long haul. Now, God forbid, if you got coronavirus or if you've already had it and you're already struggling with your energy, you can also take the B vitamins, vitamin C and E, and CoQ10, and acetylcysteine and aminos. This talk on the immune system is not exhaustive. There are other things. And I know that if you could all chat with me right now, you'd probably be asking about NAC. 600 milligrams actually twice a day is good for coronavirus prevention. But I wanted to stick to the safest things and the things that are most common and that you can find at any health food store and that are quite inexpensive. And so that's why I focused on vitamin D, C, zinc, um, primarily. Okay, we're at home. What are we doing more of? Sitting. So, standing more can actually increase your energy and production levels as well as lower your stress. So, did you know that the fourth leading risk for mortality is inactivity? Movement medicine. You want to alternate between sitting and standing every half an hour or so for optimal health. And we're going to have a break soon in about 15 minutes where you're going to get to stand up and move. Um, and and make sure if you have children at home that they're standing up and leaving the house and walking around the block in between their classes. We really don't have any excuses anymore. I mean, yes, the gyms are all closed, but you know what? 7 minutes is all it takes. And that's based on the 7 minute scientific workout um, that we know using large muscles, such as the thigh muscles, the arm muscles, can give us the same as improvements in your health as an hour-long workout. And you can get that on your iPhone app. It says 7 minute workout. There's several different versions. And essentially, it's things like jumping jacks and squats and lunges and um, sit ups and push ups. That's what it basically looks like. And it can even help raise brain derived nerve factor, helping the brain with memory in just 7 minutes. It's pretty intense. You're going to be huffing and puffing, but there's no excuses. And then low intense exercises, just like our standing and walking, we're realizing are very important. So, doing those little walks out and around the house in between your Zooms, or even listening to your Zoom while you're standing. And one thing I've done is if you can put your video off on Zoom and still pay plenty of attention, you can even do some leg lifts and some sit ups and some push ups while you're on Zoom. Now, what if you're like, oh my God, I'm ready now. I need some support. I want to just jump in now and like change my diet and exercise. You can go to this website, nourishresetrenew.com, because I can't do everything. But this is a group of people who have a whole program with a protein shake with fruits and vegetables and mushrooms and all kinds of immune boosting, adrenal balancing, as well as Pilates and meditation and soul contract work and EMF talks. And it's for 30 days and it starts tomorrow. So, and you can take your time getting on it and you get a discount of $100 if you put in DR Chan as your confirmation code. You can also go to my website if you're like, I want to get a doctor and get on board and do what's called functional medicine, where I help balance healthy hormones and balance your system. Okay, so we're actually going to take a break early. So let's take a 10-minute break and we'll reconvene at 11:55. Thank you so much.